Relief and Development NGO, founded by Dr. Hani, in a wonderful story of just a young man in 2010s. He's also founder and chairman of various charitable organizations, including the World Humanitarian Action Forum, a global initiative organized by several humanitarian and development organizations that aim to encourage effective collaboration to better serve affected communities. He's founder and chair of the Muslim Charities Forum, which aims to act as an umbrella for the Muslim charity sector in the UK, which is a huge sector because we are the most giving community in the United Kingdom, and not per capita, but actual per giving as a total sum. There's also there's a Card House, a charitable organisation that supports small charities around the UK, offering support and guidance, as well as running and funding a social project which benefits those living in poverty in the UK and around the world. Mashallah, his contribution to our collective Muslim life is actually uncountable. May Allah bless you. Yes, you can. To my direct right, we have Roxana Baiji, who is the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Leader with 12 years of experience across media, tech, professional services and HE. She recently joined the Financial Times as Global Head of DEI to drive the organization's DEI goals. At Google, Roxana led the EMEA's tech business DEI agenda, increasing women in tech representation while helping leaders navigate issues like race equality. Her experience also includes DEI consulting at EI and 10 years in financial services. Roxana is passionate about supporting Muslim women through her role as ambassador for Muslim Women Connect, and is passionate about empowering youth to own their Muslim identity while building confidence and success in her role as trustee for Here for Youth. Thank you very much. And in the middle there, thank you for going up today. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. And we had a little Phil tackling. Phil is the director of the Faith and Belief Forum, an interfaith charity that works towards a connected and supported society where people of different faiths, beliefs, and cultures have strong, productive relationships. Having worked in many contexts affected by violent conflict, including the Philippines, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and the South Caucasus, he joined Faith and Belief Forum to apply his international peace-building experience more to a UK context. He has a degree in history from Cambridge, a PGC from Bangor University in North Wales, and an MA in restorative justice from the University of Hull. So, now we'll introduce and welcome our guests to the panel, where we're going to be looking at faith, heritage, and citizenship. So the same format applies as we had this morning, 5 minutes from each of our panelists, and then we'll have a very short conversation. And I ask you to please keep your 5 minutes so that we can have enjoy our conversation. Who would like to start? Can I start with you, Dr. Hammond?
Oh, all right. I will try my best. Thank you. I'll try to keep it to my 5 minutes. I will start by emphasizing on what Dr. Suhail said about the Arabic language. My statement is, you cannot be a mufti if you don't know Arabic. Got it? Cannot give fatwa if you don't know Arabic. Cannot stand in high seat of authority in Islam, especially in theology, if you don't know Arabic. This is my statement. I will take you to my field if you want to join. You are Mr. Champagne and I'm Mr. Whiskey.
Glad to meet you. Let's not mix the drinks too much.
I can become vodka later on. Okay. I was giving a talk about faith, but do we believe in our faith? Do we know what faith is about? Or we just do some ritual performances or activities and we call it faith? Faith for me is a responsibility, is a burden, is a mission, is a vision, is a message. Faith for me is a struggle, perseverance, hardship. Ithar, you give what you have to people you love if you are in need. And forgiveness. Faith is belonging to Allah, to the universe. Accommodation, inclusivity, togetherness, and distinction. Faith is a fellowship, guideline, reward, punishment, accountability, and judging. Faith is not something we make it as a game and we talk about it. Faith is surrender, submission, satisfaction, steadfastness, and cohesion. Faith is modernity and authenticity at the same time. Is renaissance and civilization. Is history and future. Is drudgery and renewal. Faith is identity. My identity is my faith. Faith is manner, culture, philosophy, values. Faith is contribution, provision, addition, stabilizer, and deforming. Faith is everything in our life. We can't live without faith. Can't live without God. We can't live without a book. Can't live without a prophet. Faith is a power of change, protection, guidance, and motivation. Faith is activism, direction, functionality, and knowledge. Faith is discovery, pioneering, innovation, and reforming. Faith is a family, is a society, is a community, is a nation, is the universe. This is my faith. Faith is art, poetry, drama, music, and painting. When you talk about faith, talk about Islam, you find all of it there, and more and more and more. Faith is not only for Ramadan, not only for Eid, not only for Zakat. Faith is a 24/7 dynamic life or dynamic power inside you to enable you to change humanity. I love you. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
As I say, what comes from the heart reaches the heart, and most of us reflecting on what faith is. Really touched my heart, just happened. It's on to you.
Not sure how I can follow.
I follow you.
How I
Don't
can
follow me.
the poetic. Thank you for sharing. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today and join you on this Sunday, a week before Ramadan, and to discuss this really pertinent topic in terms of our sense of belonging as a community, as citizens of the UK, and the role that faith and faith communities play in our sense of citizenship. We've already been discussing as Muslims, our faith and the core tenets of our faith ground us in our purpose, in our identity to worship God. This really anchors us, and through this, we can then consciously contribute to our local communities. We've heard already from Dr. Sahel and Sheikha about community interaction and the importance of community. And for me, this was really instilled in me from a child. My parents, who came here in the 60s from India, they really distilled that sense of community engagement and social responsibility. And that social responsibility as citizens of the UK was important. And this is grounded in, our principles of akhlaq and adab, how we interact, how we engage, our character in everything we do, whether that's, as a child being involved in local jumble sales in the church, or being involved in school activity, being involved in setting up and building the madrasas at the time and the masajids, which, were very small or in some cases in community halls. So this sense of the need to build community, support community, was instilled in someone like me from a very young age. Our faith guides us to be just, and principles of social justice and equity are grounded in everything we do and all of our behaviours. And we do this knowing that even if the environment we're in doesn't value that, we know we must persevere. We know from the Surah Hujurat that we just heard that we are here to get to know one another, to persevere, to continue. And we spoke of resilience earlier as well, and in doing so, we're encouraged to build those bridges of coexistence across communities which transcend religious boundaries. Those same faith communities that I grew up with are now engaging in broader local community engagement, and that was in Preston, Lancashire in recent years. They've helped broader and featured on the news, so helping with things like the flood crisis in the Lake District. It was the mosque communities that went, and those I was pleased to see it was featured in the media. So where we are doing good as a Muslim community is recognised. And in my intro, Sarah mentioned that I'm a trustee for Here for Youth. It's charities like Here for Youth that are empowering our masjids through a youth engagement framework to build communities in our masjids, to centre our masjids as local hubs where our youth can grow up feeling confident in their identity. Now more than ever, where they'll be questioning their sense of belonging and their citizenship to the UK, they can grow and build identities where they can feel confident in their Britishness, their sense of belonging to the UK, whilst also knowing that they can be confident Muslims. The Muslim community in the UK, we know it's not a monolith, we know we're all of different cultures, we've navigated matters of identity in the UK, for a long time, and for me growing up as well, I was centered in my South Asian identity. My Muslim identity probably wasn't as prevalent, because I know that when people looked at me, they saw my brownness first before they saw anything else. However, over time, I think as a community, we've started to unpick the layers of our identity, put them together, and grow stronger in all of the different intersections of our individual identities, which are many, and recognize that there is strength in those intersections of identity, and there is strength in what we bring as a community, what we bring as individuals to the organizations, the communities that we operate in, whichever sector you're working in, whether that's in the NHS, in the public sector, in government, in organizations in the private sector. And organizations are recognizing that. That's taken me to the work I do today. I didn't start out doing this work, but the need to help organizations recognize the value of the intersections of all of the communities of faith or none is important. And when people recognize this and they leverage the power of the intersections of the identities that we bring, that's when magic happens, but also as individuals, as communities, we can feel included, we can build that sense of belonging.
Sense of belonging, we know it's challenging. It was last year's theme for Ramadan tent. Phil.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for inviting me here to Ramadan. Yeah, my dad was an Anglican priest, so he's not alive anymore, sadly. But I remember sort of growing up in that Anglican family. How important faith was to him and to our family and to me. I want to just, in 5 minutes, touch on a few points. The first on the connection between faith and citizenship, as building on what Dr. Hani and Anna have said, really. But then to say something about how kind of our sense of Britishness perhaps has changed over the past decade. And finally, maybe something about what we have to do to keep building it. So first of all, I think it's been said very eloquently and better than I can, perhaps, about the link between sort of our sense of being part of a British community, a UK community, and the role of faith. And I think what you've just heard is this importance of community. I think that strikes me as related very deeply to values. And I think what faith brings, whatever that faith, I think it brings a real sense of value, a deep sense of caring for each other, for looking after each other in times of need, but also actually to give voice to different issues that matter to our communities. And this is all part of, I think, our citizenship, our sense of being part of one community, is to give voice, different voices to different issues that concern to us all. And it's interesting that our organisation of Faith and Belief Forum, we run these awards, these Faith and Belief awards, because this sense of faith and community isn't always recognised in our society, I don't think. And in fact, faith can sometimes have a bad name. And so it's really important to shine a light on the role that faith plays in building community. So we run these awards, and the Ramadan 10 project actually was one of the winners back in 2019. And it's really important, therefore, to celebrate the role that faith-based organisations and faith institutions play in addressing needs in society. And this keeps us together, I think, whether it's working for the homeless, those who don't have enough food to eat. And we saw this very much during COVID, and the strength of faith communities in playing this role in society. And this, to me, makes me proud of being a citizen of the UK. It's this sense of community and looking after each other and what matters. So has this sense of kind of Britishness, has this kind of grown or waned over the last decade? Well, interestingly, there was some research done by British Future back in 2022, actually. And British Future is a think tank that deals with all issues to do with Britishness and our sense of belonging. But they did this research which showed that over the past decade, our sense of belonging to Britain, although it's sometimes interchangeable with England, but the sense of belonging to Britain, the sense of Britishness has strengthened, including amongst minority ethnic groups. They did a booster, as this survey, to make sure that those views of ethnic minorities were kind of represented in the sample. So it increased from 72% back in 2012 who said that they had a strong sense of belonging to 80%. And that was kind of reassuring to me. And so I think this sense of, and I wonder why that is, why that shift from 72 to 80, when in fact our community and our country is getting more diverse. We know that from our history of immigration, migration, and it's increasing, it's still increasing. So there seems to be a correlation between that, you could say, and this increasing sense of togetherness. So I was saying, well, why is that? And I think it could be part of this sense of, although we are diverse in our faiths, in our identities, in all their manifestations, as you say, Roxanne, I think it encourages us to have a collective effort to developing our society. So that collective effort, I think, is in many ways stronger because of our diversity, and also our ability to solve problems. We may sometimes despair at the fact that we're not solving enough problems in our society, but I think our ability to solve problems in society is arguably greater if we are diverse and have different views, and we have different strengths, and we have different worldviews. So that was very interesting, this correlation between increasing diversity and increasing sense of belonging. Finally, something on not resting on our laurels, perhaps. And I heard somebody say that sort of working on this sense of collectiveness, this sense of pulling together, is not something, perhaps, if we think about connecting across identities, it is not necessarily something that we're born with. It's something that we have to work on, a bit like riding a bike. But like riding a bike, it can be good for us, it can be good fun, and once you do it, you don't forget it easily. And I think, therefore, we have to keep working at it. And I think the way we do it at the Faith and Belief Forum, just to finish off, is that I think we do a lot of work in schools to equip learners with greater understanding of diversity, of difference, how to communicate and understand those who are different. But we also strengthen networks, diverse networks, and these kind of opportunities for connectivity. And I think arguably, although COVID showed how faith communities come to the fore and play a really important role, I think we did drop back a bit in terms of our kind of those opportunities to connect. And I think we've got to sort of rebuild those opportunities to connect. So in summary, and again, thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm really encouraged at how our sense of belonging is growing and strengthening, and I think that has a lot to do with diversity. I think it's a really, community is such an important part of our sense of belonging, and faith plays a huge role in that. And finally, let's keep working on it.
Talking about keeping working on it, and I guess from that we can always say it's a work in progress. But for those potentially who are a little older, who've been doing this work for a long time, but now you found this only 40 years ago,
I'm still 37.
Absolutely. But that narrative of creating a British Islamic identity, moving on from our grandparents' generation, so now we're born here, rooted here, British Muslims, and that has been really at the forefront of British Muslim narrative. And now our population is, Muslim population, the average age is 27, so a young population. So here we are talking about faith, about heritage, and about citizenship. You alluded to this a little bit in your speech, Rosanna. What happens when the social contract is strained? what happens when challenges are put forward, where what is being put in, what has been put in, the feelings of, yes, I belong, are challenged by voices that question that, and the social contract that we've signed up to regarding, contributions, citizenship, values, the pillars of democracy, free media, etc. How are those challenged? How do we face those challenges?
Alhamdulillah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I take you back to September 11th, where all of us were in a dilemma. And the head of media department said we have to lower our head down. Said, no way. At that time, we said, no way. We are a part of the Muslim community in Europe and in the West. And we have to stand for Islam and for the community. What we did is we faced the media. How to be equipped, how to use the microphone and to talk to the camera, not to talk to the presenter. And we took 1 day training program in London, one of these media company, training companies. And we were looking for the media to say that we have done nothing wrong. And we succeeded. That's how we stood. Now, October 7 is more powerful than September 11. We shouldn't be naive of not keeping our identity without being emotionally excited. Emotional excitement is no good for a time like that. You have to observe, you have to comprehend, and you have to protect your organization. Because people could be looking for how to destroy your organization because you make a wrong statement on the social media. At the time, we have to keep steadfastness with our belief, with our identity, but no mistake should be done on emotional background. Thank you, Sister Sarah. Sorry, if you want to speak.
I think it's at times like this which are heavy when communities are being othered, communities are being marginalised, that we need to come back again to the month of Ramadan, the month of the Quran, come back to the Quran, to know that hope lies with Allah, and to continue to lift the stories, your experiences, be present in whichever organisation you're in, and continue to shine a light on what our communities are doing. Huge plus one to what Dr. Hani just said in terms of being mindful, even as an individual myself in organisations striving for diversity and inclusion, and then thinking, does this really matter to organisations, or is it a tick box, or am I really achieving something? So taking that pause for reflection and then actually continuing to strive, knowing that through having people like me in organizations, having faith and belief forums, having spaces where Muslims can come together, people of faith, no faith, all united in a purpose, in their values for humanity, continuing to strive, is so important, so important.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. I think there's no doubt at the moment. You mentioned social contract, Sarah. I assume you're kind of relating to this contract between the governors and the governed, and what that relationship feels like. And I suppose what we're not seeing enough from, I think, at the moment, if you think of that contract, or where it's got a bit, well, not a bit, it's got really challenging, is with this space for engagement, and the space to connect, and to disagree, and to be able to talk. And I think that space is shrinking, and I think it's shrinking because of fear, partly, and I think it's also shrinking because perhaps we're not getting enough support for those spaces to be kept open. So it's a challenging time, but I would agree we have to, I think, dig deep at the moment and have the courage to keep those spaces open and to keep engaging, because that's where the kind of the sense of belonging, we're going to retain it if we can keep.
Ramadan project is definitely one of those spaces, and for 11 years it's been a space for the strangers enterprise. And so, a final roundup from each of you as we come to conclude this panel. How, I suppose, what would be your top tip, if I can ask you for one or maybe two, to give hope? Maybe that's one question. So how can we, what's your top tip for people to keep hopeful in difficult times? And you mentioned fear, Phil. So how do we address fear? How do we make those spaces? So yeah, I'd like you to reflect and conclude concluding thoughts on making spaces challenging fear and being hopeful. What's that?
Start to the ladies first.
We're entering the month of mercy, month of forgiveness, so grounding ourselves in the blessings of Ramadan, keeping that hope alive through your prayers, through collective du'as, through collective prayers. That would be, I think, definitely a top tip. I think facing fears, addressing them, sharing them in the safe spaces that you can find in the community, and coming to open iftars if your organizations are doing fast a day, or many organizations do, fast a few days. So whatever those spaces are, engaging, and back to where I started in terms of your own character, continue showing up and knowing that how you present, how you show up and hold your head up high as Muslims, that would be something I would say to continue doing.
Yes, I suppose three things come to mind when you mention that. The first is, I think, to listen. I think sometimes when we're faced with challenges that go so deep, I think it's easy to stop listening to others. I mean, to those who may have something different to say. So I think though that's the first thing, to listen, particularly those